Hey everybody, welcome to the World Series of Board Gaming 2022. Tonight, we are live streaming the finals to acquire one of the ring events here at the World Series of Board Gaming. My name is Stephen Bonacore. I am the podfather of gaming.
I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Less of a cool title than yours, honestly.
Tonight, though, Alex, we are crowning the world champion of Acquire. So not only was that person going to wear a ring, wear a ring as the world champion, they are going to move on to the semifinals and then possibly to the finals where they can earn $25,000. I mean, I'm going to make sure I know who this person is in the end because they're going to leave me alone because I'm a little short at the moment on cash.
The whole thing is very cool. Just this morning outside, at 8:30 this morning, they gave away the ring for last night's
That was
events,
amazing.
For Seven Wonders and Splendor. And just watching the first two rings being given out, like it's cool. This is the first time in history we're having the World Series of Board Games. It's cool to just be here, to be a part of it. And now we're heading on to Acquire for the second night.
We're in this entire thing we're doing here, the World Series, we're legitimizing the industry, right? There's $1 million prizes out there for electronic gaming. Now, we're not doing that, of course.
Yes,
but,
yes.
A $40,000 prize pool is nothing to sneeze at. And literally, on Sunday, one person's walking away with 25 grand. I think that's just phenomenal.
And they're going to know you and your name and have your number.
And then, hey, I'm going to be looking them up for a loan. Right now, why don't we take a look at the state of the game? I believe they're just about ready to set up and start the game. So why don't we check that out? And we'll cut over now. Chris, take us away.
Well, gee, I guess I'm not going to be going first.
And so now this is, I believe, a special edition of Acquire, one of the more...
Maybe I still am. I still have a chance.
Over the years had several editions going on, a whole bunch. This is a very old title. I think this is the oldest title actually being featured in the World Series of Board Gaming.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Oh, and by the way, I'd like to mention that Acquire tonight is sponsored by the Podfather of Gaming.
Oh, indeed.
It is. I have sponsored this. What does that mean? I'm not sure, but it's very cool to have the sponsorship of this event. And actually, my logo is going to be on the ring.
That's very cool.
That is actually
That's
very
cool. It's going to be a little awkward that you're the grand prize winner of everything alone. But no, this game was designed in 1976, and this has been, I believe, 1976. I'm pretty sure about that. But this is one that's been, it's had a lot of editions over the years, and this particular one is a more sought after one that goes for a hefty price in the secondhand market. I believe it's very hard to get your hands on this one. It has some nicer building tiles, I believe. I think I'm looking at the correct edition, but perhaps not because I'm looking at the tiles. This is one of many of the editions. I'm not sure if it's the one I think it was.
This is the one that I actually have, and this, like you said, this is the most sought after.
Big box, I believe.
I think this actually had an Avalon Hill logo on it. I'm not sure, but this is the chunky one. Right? It's got a huge plastic board that's embossed,
Yes.
and you take those tiles and you place them there, and it locks it right in. So it's really cool. And by the way, you said 70s. This is 1964.
64.
This is Sid Sackson's masterpiece. And we might probably talk a little bit more about Sid Sackson a little while in this broadcast, but he's an amazing American designer. Let's talk about the current board state. So what's going on right now, Alex? What are they showing us?
So this is going to be they're going through the, what's it called, initial setup?
This is initial setup, and there's already 4
hotel blocks on the.
there are blocks on the grid, and the grid is 9 by 12.
Yeah. And so as the game progresses, the players are going to be placing down blocks to form hotel chains. You can see those off to the left over there, the 7 different hotels. We're going to have, actually, you mentioned Sid Sackson. In this version of the game, the red chain is named after Sid Sackson. It's called the Sackson chain.
Right. Why don't we mention the corporations since we have a small break here, right? So the corporations are a little bit different than each other. The cheaper corporations, we'll call it, just based on stock price that you can purchase. We have a red and yellow, and that's called Saxon and Zeta are the first 2. Then the average price ones are Hydra is orange, Fusion is green, and America is blue. And the Pricey ones, Alex?
Pricey ones are going to be Phoenix as purple, and then we have Quantum as turquoise.
Turquoise. It's a very, I was going to say cyan, which is a, I don't know, modern, I don't name,
Debate,
but I don't know.
honestly, between the turquoise, cyan, and blue, there's a lot of color shading going on.
A little bit of shade.
But yeah, we're going to be creating those corporations. They're going to be going through the process of forming those corporations, and then this whole arc to Acquire, which we'll get into as the game goes through.
Now take a look what just happened. So the first tile was played. In Acquire, you place a tile, and something might happen,
Yep.
and then you can buy up to 3 shares. That's your basic turn. However, tell us about what happens when 2 tiles are placed next to each other,
So
Alex.
something that might happen is when a tile is placed next to another tile for the first time, if it's the first time a tile goes from 1 to 2, a hotel chain is formed. A player will have the opportunity to go ahead and choose which one of those 7 hotels, or if they're all available, to start the process of forming, and they'll also get a founder's share of stock. This is where you get, in the early game, you have this interesting balance between the fact that players are vying for whether that founder's share is important enough versus whether holding onto the right tiles is important enough, and they're going to have that back and forth. And then, like you said, after that, whether or not a corporation is formed, regardless of what happes, you place a tile, a corporation may or may not be formed, and then you have the choice of buying up to 3 shares of stock. That's a turn in Acquire.
That is a good summary of a turn in Acquire. There's a lot of money. Oh, were they just handing out
they're
change?
still going through the setup. I believe that second tile over there is actually just coincidentally next to each other.
Oh, but doesn't that...
Good with your money?
1, 2, 3. I count 5 tiles on the board.
Yeah, there's the starting money initially. They're just going through starting money.
But why are there 5 tiles on a 4-player game on the board? Is that...
I'm not actually confident. Fun fact about this game, Steven. I've played this game.
no, there it is.
ton.
So someone
Was it?
someone took the first turn. They might have been doing chains just now. Okay.
No, that was a starting money. That was starting money.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to my own experience with Acquire, I played this game extensively years ago. Years ago, I played extensively. The past few weeks, I dove into it a few times to reacquaint myself with this game. But this is a lovely older title. The way I often put it when talking about Acquire is I feel this is the game that Monopoly should have been, if that makes sense. I feel it's a game that it came from an older age of gaming, but I think this one actually really holds up as far as the level of strategic decisions going on in the game. It's a lot going on here, despite the simplicity of the turn sequence.
It is, absolutely. I mean, and just to mention, guys, so we talked about Sid Sackson very briefly. Sid Sackson I put in the pantheon of great American designers from the past. The original slate of great American designers, and he's got a slew of amazing games. But this, I think, Acquire is his, opus, his magnum opus. Just a phenomenal design that really stands the test of time.
Yeah,
so it's amazing.
It definitely does. I mean, this holds up. Like I said already, this is the oldest title we have in it being in the WSBG, the World Series of Board Gaming, and that's for a reason. This is a game that is often recommended. Recently, actually, well, I said recently, but I just filmed a video recently. It hasn't actually gone up, but talking about 10 of my favorite older titles, and I believe Acquire is in there. I'm pretty sure it was.
Very good.
Yeah, so the first turn played out already. We already have the first 2 turns playing out. We have Phil actually has 4 shares of Phoenix at the moment. He got that founder share, and then he doubled down into it with 3 more shares. And then we have Dan on his turn went ahead, and Dan has 3 shares of Phoenix as well.
One thing we didn't do is introduce the players. So for those who are watching at home, we're going to start at the top left and work our way around the table. So in seat 1 we have Dan. He's hailing from Connecticut. And he claims, I don't know, is this true or not, that he's got 3 or 4 plays of Acquire under his belt. He made the final table with that. If that's true, man's a genius.
Well, he actually mentioned that in general, like he has an affinity for like probability and statistics and all that stuff. So I mean, between the two of them, Acquire is a fascinating game. What's going on? We'll talk more about the various phases of the game as we go through this. But over on player 2, we have Alex.
Who? Alex?
Alex.
Oh,
Alex.
Oh, it's
that
not you
is
though.
Me. I believe that's me.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I believe he's from LA, and his favorite game, Steven, I think his favorite game is one that you like quite a bit.
Let me say it. It's War of the Ring. Now, I'm going to meet this guy, Alex, and Alex and I are going to have this very deep discussion about War of the Ring, and maybe, in fact, we'll play War of the Ring, the card game. I happen to have the prototype for that here with me, and I'm going to show it off tomorrow.
Now, if you can find 3 commonalities with the other players, you have yourself halfway towards a loan. Yeah.
There we go.
Player 3.
Player 3 is Chris. Chris is from Chicago, and very interestingly, Chris teaches probability and analytics. So, I mean, that's a pretty good skill set to have coming into something like this.
Yeah, and then in player 4, over in player 4, we have Phil from Utah. And Phil sells, he has the most fascinating job here, I think, which is he sells motorcycles. Which someone had to.
So I can get a loan from the winner and then go to Phil, maybe the same person, and get a loan and buy a motorcycle.
Absolutely.
Which, as a retired guy, I need a motorcycle.
I
think
feel
that'd be
like
cool.
a motorcycle is an appropriate fit for a retired guy. Yeah. Now, so they're going to be placing the tiles slowly. So you can see we already have 2 hotels formed on the board. We have Saxon over there as well as Phoenix formed currently. And then the hotels are starting to develop. Now you can see already they're starting to form on the outside of the board, which is a fairly safe initial hedge of the game state, trying to figure out how things are going to determine. One of the interesting things about Acquire is going to be that early versus mid versus late game strategy, because you have to be mindful of your cash in the game. You're going to start the game with such an amount of cash, but you kind of want to be mindful of the end game where the larger hotels are going to be worth, well, giant payouts, but also the fact that mid game, you don't want to find yourself running out of cash, which is the tricky part. Because running out of cash, it means you can't buy things. And so you kind of want to see hotel chains acquired as the game goes on.
I played the game today. I got lucky enough. I was just about ready to play a game with somebody, and I saw someone grabbing a players wanted sign, and I watched, and they sat down at a table, and it was Acquire, and I'm like, I've got to get in on this, which will obviously help me for tonight. And I played it and had an amazing time. And we went through the whole thing about, I'm as a new player there. I played this 15 years ago. It's probably the last time I played Acquire. And so I am not an expert. You're much more of an expert than I am. And I absolutely ran out of cash. Absolutely, mid-game, I ran out of cash. But even with doing so, I came in second, and I was only about $1,500 away from the top. So I felt vindicated.
I do.
That's not bad at all. Now, our game master tonight is Charles Minter. Have you talked to Charles at all?
I have not spoken to Charles, I don't believe.
Yeah, and then over here we have obviously our delightful Chris George running things in the showroom, as well as Shira from last night.
So let's give a shout out to Shira. Shira was my co-host last night.
I heard she set a bar for me.
She was unbelievable last night on the air with me. In fact, she carried it. I was no talent versus her major talent on air. But we couldn't have Brian in the studio today, who was doing all of the writing on the board. Shira volunteered to help us out, which is great. She's keeping track sort of on the state for us so we can comment on and who's got the shares of what corporation. So Shira, thank you for helping us out there.
And this is one of the things that's interesting about Acquire as well, because Acquire does devolve as one point to a game of tracking hidden information, or trying to mentally recall as much as you can, as well as a degree of bluffing as the game progresses. Now, one of the things we'll have the advantage of in the studio is, thanks to Shira, we'll see exactly the various shares that any player has at any given time as they buy, sell, acquire, trade into an acquired corporation. This is something that the players don't have access to the same way we do, and they have to kind of go by tracking their own game state as much as possible, because it becomes a huge part of the experience as you try to determine the value of things and what you want to buy into to get those majority and minority shareholder points at the end of the game. Speaking of which, we just saw our third hotel chain developed. We have, I believe, not in America, that is Quantum. Quantum is now on the board.
Quantum being one of the more expensive companies, both Quantum and Phoenix are on the board. And very often you see those get on there early because people want to try to get in on the ground floor of a expensive corporation, because those are going to obviously have bigger payouts later on.
So once again, currently we have Saxon in play. We have Alex with 7 shares of Saxon and Dan with 3 shares of Saxon. So we currently have the majority and minority shareholders of Saxon firmly established. Then as we move over to Quantum, to Per Phoenix with the purple hotel chain you see over there, we have Dan with 3 shares, Chris with 3, and Phil with 7.
One small thing you'll notice if you're watching with us is that there are sort of what looks like player boards there on there, and that's not part of the game as published, but for the World Series of Board Gaming, they've had to add special things in there to ensure that people are placing things down, paying the right amounts. People can audit it as it goes along. And that's great. And they've had this for all the games. And we had it last night when we were commenting on Seven Wonders. and you can just see people put things down. People can check out what they're paying, what they're grabbing, and it's perfect. It works out really well in this kind of serious game format.
Yeah, I used it in 7 Windows last night, and it's one of those interesting things because on the one hand, it adds an extra level of just maintenance to the game, but again, the nature of this being a competitive environment, the nature of the fact that there is $25,000 on the line, is it leaves less room for small errors in the game. So it leaves less room for like, did that person pay the thing? Did the person transition that share or whatnot as they go through the experience? Just keeps things clean.
Absolutely.
These two are the same color.
Next, we have Chris established with the first shares in Quantum over there, with 3 shares in Quantum.
So I've heard this phrase.
It looks like we have Zeta entering the board.
All you see is black.
That's not Zeta. I believe. No, that is Zeta. That is Zeta. Yeah, the yellow and orange. If you look at the
That's
actual
orange.
building,
Oh,
no,
you suck.
that's Zeta.
Come on,
Look
2D.
at the-
Come on,
look at the
2D.
board to the left. You'll see
Yes.
that.
That is Zeta.
Yeah, the buildings are actually very similar. The cards less so, but the
Yes.
buildings might throw you off. So we currently have Zeta on the board, with 4 shares for Phil. And again, it's a very safe plays as the game progresses. Very safe plays in terms of keeping to that edge of the board. We haven't seen any middle action movement. Although the truth of the matter is, if you think about it, that early game setup actually had no real tiles in the middle. We have 8B as being the closest thing to the center, really. I mean, I guess we have technically 11 what is that down there? 11 something down there. But yeah, it's definitely a very edge-focused board at the moment.
So one of the things I've heard about Acquire and strategies from like players at this level is that the closer a hotel chain is to the center of the board, the more lucrative it can be in the early game. And I didn't quite get that, but that was something that I read online. And do you know how that works out?
We'll take any strategy advice I give with all the grains of salt appropriate for 2 recent games and then, like, I don't know, 10 games 5 years ago.
Got it.
But generally, the interesting thing about the center of the board is the center of the board has a few things going for it, but they're riskier. They kind of work for you in different ways because they have more opportunities to be acquired as the game progresses by the very nature of being more centered to different things. And as you hit that mid game, once something sells, you do want that cash influx. So getting in early as something develops and builds, while also making sure you have the opportunity for the mid-game cash re-influx into the game, can help you for that late-game push. Again, strategy knows what the hint of salt.
There you go. Now, it looks like there's a merger going on. It's our first merger of the game. Right? We are merging Zeta and Saxon.
Yeah, Zeta and Saxon are merging. Now, we haven't talked about merges at all in the game yet.
So, right. So what happens when a tile is placed between 2 corporations? In other words, they will now touch in a contiguous way.
Yep.
How does this work? The smaller company is absorbed by the bigger company.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And then the remaining shares of the smaller company, the players have an opportunity of how they want to handle them. So you can see right now, America just Saxon just left the board as Zeta took it over, and as Zeta took it over. I'm sorry, that orange versus yellow is going to throw me off the whole night over here. But what happens there at that point is the players who have shares in Zeta now have an opportunity to figure out what they want to do, whether they want to trade those shares in at I believe at a 2-for-1
2 to 1 rate. That's right.
Yep,
for the new corp.
Correct. Which can be an opportunity to get in at almost a cheaper price in a sense because that corporation is larger and it means its sell price is larger, its endgame points are larger. Alternatively, you have an option to divest them, to sell them out and get the current market value of those shares, which if the hotel do it all, that can give you an opportunity to get that cash profit going throughout the course of the game.
Or you can simply hold on to this corporation that doesn't even exist, right? So as you might have seen, the Saxon Corp, the Red Corp, is now off the board. There are shares that are just sitting out there. There are 25 shares for all corporations when they're off the board completely. And someone who had some Saxon can still have it in their hand as somebody who's going to hopefully in the future bring it back. Or someone else brings it back and you're holding you might be sandbagging 3 shares that maybe people forgot that you had.
It's a gamble. The plus side is it can save you that purchase. Because you can only purchase 3 shares a turn, that means you do have a finite amount of shares you can gather. So you can save yourself that transitionary period, but you are taking a bit of a gamble on what's going to happen with Saxon if it's a current unknown.
Now, I did that today, I guess relatively successfully, where I kept shares early on in a corporation that did not exist because I didn't need the money. Of course, later on, I had run out of money somewhere in the mid-game, which didn't obviously hurt me so much because I did well. I came in second.
Is that why you're asking for a loan?
Yes, that's it. My money in Acquire is gone, and I somehow need some more money. So if anybody has any money out there, I will accept your loan.
Yeah, so we currently have 4 chains on the board. Currently have 4 chains.
When you say 4, you mean yes? We have 4 hotel chains, right?
Hotels, yes.
It's funny because I don't think of it as hotels, though. I guess the game says hotel. I think of it as corporations. You have these smaller corporations being absorbed by larger corporations. But yes, at least in some of the
Red shares.
variations of this game, they're called hotels.
So I was going to say, like, it might come down to the variation, the nature of the game having so many additions over the years. They even had, like, a special, I believe there was an edition with special powers or something. I could
No
be,
kidding, really?
I could be wrong. I could
Right.
be completely off base here. I vaguely recall one of the editions might have had something like that.
I'm gonna ask Chris, our crack engineer, who do we see on the screen right now, just so that we can associate? Because we see them on the top down. We know who they are. Who's that? Who are those two? So that's Dan in player 1 in seat 1, and Alex in seat 2. Very good. Thank you. Right. And then here we have
On the left,
in that
we have
order, right?
Chris.
Chris on the left and Phil on the right. Thank you, our crack engineer, which I mean by that I mean he's smoking crack between the segments. Thank you for laughing out there in the audience. You might not have heard that, but there were people laughing in the studio.
Yeah, not only other people.
By the way, we are in Las Vegas, as I mentioned, and we might have been to a reception before this.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No. Okay. You want plausible deniability?
Plausible
That
deniability.
maybe one of us had a beer,
I-
and maybe one of us had 2 beers. I might have been in the latter category.
I make no admission whatsoever. You know me.
Vegas.
You know me, Steven. If I had a beer, I'd be all over the place.
You're very reserved, actually, now, versus the way you were when you walked into this room. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, I just find that I can be reserved when I need to be reserved, and I can be excited and over all over the place when I need to be all over the place.
So while we're talking this nonsense here,
Yes.
you know,
Oh, so we're seeing
I
some
think
hotel. Sorry, we're seeing in the middle. That's the closest we've gone to the middle of the whole game. Uh-oh. I'm seeing the person who
so.
laughed.
Yes. So part of our quasi audience, because this is actually just the studio, but we
Okay, excellent. Beautiful.
like
So just hold-
so that
just
you
hold-
have good
yeah.
light. So let me. So
Hey.
Hi, who are you?
Hey, Alex.
Hi, Daniel.
How
How's
you
it
doing?
going?
I have a question for you.
Yes.
It's about my car right now.
can you please put her on camera at least to show what she just did?
Alex, I have a question for you.
What's your question, Daniel?
What do you call an alligator in a vest?
Ooh.
You have 3 seconds. 3, 2,
I don't know. I don't know.
an investigator.
That's terrible. That's terrible. That's absolutely
Oh, you
terrible.
can come back in.
Can I come back in
You
now?
have to hold that, though.
I have to hold the lighting instrument here.
Let's
So
go.
Danielle needs good
So
lighting.
Danielle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm
Yes.
Danny Standring, and I've never played this game before.
Do you know? Have you been following what's been going on?
Nope, it actually looks like a light bright.
It looks like a what?
It looks like a light bright.
A light bright. That's a toy.
Could you like strategically place hotels so it makes like rainbows and smiley faces and like
You probably could, but it would probably be less efficient from a player stance. as
I
you
think
did
it's
that.
not an efficient strategy.
So
It's
there's
a
no
but
strategy
it's not
there.
going.
Okay.
Right.
Well, no,
But
the
no,
strategy here. There's no strategy in your version of things.
But before we get into commenting on in this intelligent way, Danny, why don't you tell us about yourself? I mean, like tell the audience, yes, who are you and what do you do in this industry? Because you are a very important person. You are.
me
Yes,
coming
you
from
are.
the VIP himself.
Guest of honor, but let you know.
I had like 15.
Oh,
so
jeez. We're disowned by the guest of honor at this point. I'm Danny Standring. I'm a short form board game content creator, primarily on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, pretty much anywhere there's a short bar, search bar. Sorry, I'm watching myself.
I know.
I like myself. It's a plague. I'm sorry. Hi.
Look right there into the camera, right there, straight ahead.
How you doing?
You know, you normally don't look at the camera, which is very
I do.
charming.
I actually do look at the camera.
No,
when I
like
talk.
no, when you talk, you look kind of like.
You're like halfway at the counter. You're
Yeah.
like grabbing some cookies off to the side. You're like looking off into the distance as you contemplate life in general.
You do.
Like
So I'm
that,
gonna
right
look
there,
up
right
over
there. You
there.
just did it. You just did it.
Hey everyone.
But no, seriously, I want to say that Danielle Sandry, really amazing. You work for many companies in the industry. You're doing the social media, and your energy. No, seriously, your energy, your personality. You're very charming, and thank you for being here as one of the VIPs and helping to make the World Series of Board Gaming even more special.
Well, and I want to thank everyone for having me here. I'm having a blast, and it's my first time in Vegas, so this has been an interesting experience.
First, or because does Reno count?
Reno does not.
Because you and I were both in
No.
Reno, but I was like, Reno was my first time in
gosh.
technically
But
Vegas.
no,
No,
there is
Reno's
some,
not Vegas. Reno's another
Hold on,
city.
there is some overlap because I haven't seen the sun yet since I've been here. And I also didn't see the sun in Reno, which is very unlike me. It was like 4 days of just like cellar dwelling, but it wasn't a cellar. They like get you. They're getting me here too. I feel that coming. It's been 8 hours. I haven't seen the sun.
Good luck.
The sun's still out.
But we have to give you the Vegas experience. So like after this, we're gonna go to the High Roller. We're gonna go to a bar. We're gonna hang out, right? We said that. We're gonna bring some people. We're gonna go hang out.
So,
Go ahead.
fun fact: I went to go have a little Vegas mini experience myself before I came here, and I went to this frozen cocktail bar, which is so not like me. I'm not a frozen cocktail girl. And I watched the bartender make this margarita for me. She poured 3 shots of tequila in it,
course
and I was
she
like, my insides fell out of my body instantly. I was like, and she was like $20, and I was like,
Of course it is. You're in
okay,
Vegas.
well, I'm gonna get drunk off one sip.
So we actually have a fun development on the board. I can walk you through this, Daniel, over here. In the top left corner, we actually have Saxon as one of the hotel chains that just re-entered the board. So as the game progresses, players are placing down tiles in their turn, and once you have a grouping of 2 or more, that creates a chain. And so we have a chain over there in the top left corner of Saxon. But the interesting part, the reason that's intriguing, is because Saxon is actually a phoenix brought to life in a manner of speaking. Saxon was on the board previously, was acquired by that little chain in the bottom right corner over there, that bottom right chain of I believe it's going to get me every single time, Zeta. Zeta acquired Saxon, and the players chose to keep their shares of Saxon. So we have Dan with 3 shares of Saxon, and Alex with now currently 7 left over, and just 1 stock of Founder share that he just got right now. But so he brought a hotel back in order, or again, Hotel Corporation, whatever they are,
Right.
he brought it back into play, and now we have to see how it develops, because if it grows, then that holding onto those shares can pay off well for Alex and Dan.
I feel like this is a game I should probably play.
It's really not bad at all.
I probably would really like it.
It's extremely simple to play. I mean, there's no doubt anybody, like, I can teach you this game in a few minutes. To master this game is one of those things. And there's a bit of math in it, but there's a chart in front of you, so, and it just takes you through what it is. So.
I'm going to drop over a drop if you want to shift over. That way we can have all 3 of us in the frame.
Oh, look at this!
So I actually
Do you,
have room
like
over here.
maybe you want a seat or something like that if you're gonna hang out here.
No. I got Vegas things to do.
You got Vegas things. Danielle is only here to hang out for a moment.
So now if
Then
you
she has
see over
Vegas
there,
things.
that blue and orange over there, otherwise known as, I believe that's America and
America. It's America.
America and Hydra over there. You see how they're kind of touching at the corners? That means a placement of either 7B or 8C. Either of those placements will trigger a merge. And so the interesting thing, the part that's interesting about this game is that there are players who may have either of those tiles already in their hands. You see how in front of each player there's like 6 tiles on a little board in front of them? So players always have 6 tiles in front of them. By the end of the turn, they're going to draw up. But those tiles, that 7A or 8C, may or may not be in someone's hand already, and they may just be waiting for the opportune time to play them, or it might be sitting in the bag, just waiting for it to pop out. Because a big part of this game is all about the decision about when and how to merge things, when to build and continue to invest. You keep a hotel chain small enough, and you can keep buying stock shares of that hotel chain at a lower price point. But the problem is, the more control you give up on the things in your hand, the more control you give to the other players to possibly mess around with you when things are not a good time for you.
I never know when to merge things.
You talking about driving or hotels, or what are you referring to at this
You know
point?
what? I'm gonna decide.
Cool. Because I was gonna say, the other place I've seen you staring is often to like your dash cam while you talk to the camera on the way to work, and I'm always
You're
a little
very good at
You know
concerned.
what? I'm thinking about upgrading because right now you should see how I have it set in my car. It's like this tripod that I got at the dollar store. You know what? It's been working out great. But I have it like shoved in my windshield, such. But it falls off frequently. So I should probably upgrade for safety.
upgrade for
But
safety
falling off
reasons.
camera as you stare into it has to be totally fine with the fact that you don't often merge or know how or when to
I
merge.
merge. I'm from Massachusetts. I drive like a champion, okay? Thank you.
So we went to merging cars because in Florida, basically, we no such thing. It's just bad. It's just bad. People don't have to. But let's actually talk about merging corporations for a second. See that segue? That was amazing.
great.
That was amazing.
Beautiful,
I'm impressed.
beautiful.
So when you merge corporations, right? We talked about the fact that the smaller corporation is absorbed to the larger one. But it's really interesting that when that merger occurs, there is a bonus to the majority shareholder of the merged corporation and a minority bonus to the second place. So the person that has the most shares of the corporation getting merged in gets this nice bonus, and then the second place person gets a smaller bonus, about half the bonus. And that is a huge part of this game. The fact that you want to really, really try to get first place in a merging corporation or second place in a merging, but third place rather sucks. You don't really want to be in third. You'll still have options with what you do.
Yep.
Right? Like we talked about that before. You can hold for later. You can sell at market price. Or you can take for two of the smaller corp, you can get one in the bigger corp, which could be huge too, because right, if that bigger corp is a tremendous size, all of a sudden its share price is so much higher than what you
And
had.
they can get incredibly large. We're still seeing the early game over here.
This is
but
very early game.
A maximum hotel size chain in this game is 41 tiles, I believe. Like,
And that
gets-
triggers endgame.
Yeah,
So let's
yeah.
talk about that for one moment. How does endgame trigger, Alex?
So either when the players run out of tiles, I believe. No.
No.
The first one we just
possibility-
talked about, which is the 41.
41. The second thing is if all corporations currently on the board are safe. What does that mean, Alex?
It's safe from acquisition in the sense that I believe if you have two corporations that are too large, that you would treat that getting too large would be that you can't combine them
If
effectively.
every corporation on the board is 11 tiles or more, they're all safe. Any corporation that becomes 11 tiles or more is a safe corporation. It cannot be absorbed by another corporation.
So you can't get too big for your britches.
No, you should try to get really big and hold those stocks.
So
because
your britches grow with you.
Your britches are growing with you.
No one's coming in those britches.
Well, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Well, what I've learned here is that you want big britches, and if you're not first, you're last.
I believe the expression we're looking for is too big to fail.
Oh,
That's a lot in this game. Is you become too big to fail once you're 11. So I actually triggered in my game I played today. There were only 3 corporations on the board, and we were toward the end of the game. But the way things merged, there were only 3 corporations left. All of them were bigger than 11, and I knew that I was doing pretty well. And I said nothing better can happen for me if this goes around any more times. So I said I'm triggering endgame right now, and then we summed it all up.
How'd that work out for you?
I came in second. Like I
place.
really did great, and this is like my
You're not
first
first
game in
or
like
last?
15. What's that? If I'm not first, I'm
you're
last.
last.
You know, you are so
for
inspiring.
your second.
You're like making.
I want
me
you there when they
feel
give away
sad.
the $25,000 grand prize,
I'm
Danielle.
inspired, okay?
By my second
Yeah.
place.
Like I want to.
I was first loser, basically. What you're saying.
No. You're second place winner. That's what second place means, right?
I'm not really sure that's any better, but
Second
okay.
place
Thank you, Danielle. I
winner.
appreciate
Isn't
it.
that what
Guys,
second
have a-
place is? Second
Try to
place
make
winner.
it sound better than loser.
Thank you, Danielle.
I'm gonna try and stand up now, but I feel like my knees may
Right,
not.
If I was down there
It's
this long,
not
if I was
like this.
kneeling this long, I would be like, "Give me my walker! I'm not getting up."
I feel like I've reached a new point in my life where standing up is a task. It's an Olympic sport.
Wait till you get to be.
See, I saw a
my
fun
age.
thing today, or yesterday, or whenever, but a recent thing about being adults. It's like the one thing that no one tells you about being an adult is that part of being an adult is just like, kind of deciding whether to keep a box because it's just like a really good box,
So many boxes.
That's what I'm talking about.
So does it make me more of an adult because I have more boxes?
It makes you more of an adult when the things that bring you joy are weird.
I have
Weird.
Just strange, like things that you don't think of to bring you joy.
Well,
like going
I
to
mean,
the grocery store.
You want to get into weird? Let me start. No. we
Like a
shouldn't
good
go
day
there.
is when
we
the
shouldn't
grocery
go to
store-
some of my weirdnesses. Okay.
I have boxes of computer parts from like 10 years ago in my basement.
You need a certain
just in
amount.
case.
You need
no,
a
I
certain
do
amount.
Wait,
not.
just to
You need
clarify,
to-
are you saying that you should, like, if you have a computer and you're building a computer, you should keep the box of computer parts?
Yes.
Thank you.
You know how many times I've
Thank
passed
you.
around an old like 550 like.
Oh, I'm gonna be sharing this little clip with somebody else I
Yeah.
know. Thank you very
You know how many
much.
times I've sent that off?
This is bad advice to all hoarders out there. Get rid of your stuff
You
you
never
don't
know.
need. If you need it later, you'll buy it
Well,
again.
the point at which you start throwing out the computer stuff is when you need a certain cable, and you're like 95% sure it's in your attic, and you don't go to get it, and instead you buy it on Amazon, that's when you throw all the stuff out.
So fun story, and then I'll leave. I
Fun
promise.
story, and then we'll get
I'll
back
leave.
to,
And then
Acquire.
I'll leave. This looks great. The
finals.
light bright picture is coming together as I thought it would. So I recently talked about all of my cables that I've decided to hoard. I have a lot of cables. Everything. I have like an original PS1 cable.
Yeah, you should keep that. You
And
should keep
someone
that.
was like, "You could sell this for a lot of money."
You
And I was like,
you need to seek professional help. I'm
No,
just gonna
I
say,
don't.
no, you do.
"No, when you need a converter, when you need a cable, when you need a box,
For what? The
Anything.
PS1?
When you
I
need-
would have thrown the PS1 away 20 years ago.
you
But
never
okay,
know."
A
You know what?
PS1? You threw a PS1 away? Good choice, Steven. Good choice.
I would have thrown it away 20 years ago. Danielle Standring, thank you very much for being here. Do you need help
I finally
getting up?
looked into the camera.
You need
I
help
don't know
getting-
yet.
I mean, I would, like I said.
You got it?
Thanks, the Podfather.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you so much.
Danielle
Alex,
Standring, seriously.
delightful.
It was a
Thank you for having
pleasure.
Thank you for coming. We'll catch you later. Appreciate it.
I looked into the camera.
And you looked into the camera once. Awesome.
It's okay. As you left, I said thank you for having us. So we're good. We're good there.
How are we on? Are we good? Are we good on our
So we're still good. So getting back to things to a degree, this whole introduction for Danielle was
Yeah, of course.
absolutely lovely.
It actually, interruption was great. It takes a game about like that has a lot of math in there, and she gives us that great humor factor, and she is charming. But let's again thank Shira for completely staying serious here, and she is writing down exactly what the game state is like. Why don't we talk about this? So right now we see on the board, we
whole lot of
see
chains.
Zeta is still there. Players holding Zeta, very few. Actually, we have Dan holding 1 share, player 1, and player 4, Phil, has 4 shares, and that's a small corp on the side of the board. Any other major corporations out there with major stock holdings?
Zeta's currently at the moment still the largest corporation on the table at the moment. We still only have a size 5 as being our largest.
That's actually
thing.
right.
Yeah, and then we have a size 4, a size 2 size 3s, and then a bunch of size 2s for the remaining corporations. Again, still a fairly conservative game. The middle of the board is slowly starting to develop. That's going to be particularly interesting for Hydra over there, because Hydra is well poised for multiple growth opportunities. 7A or 8C will trigger an
I mean, I
acquisition
did
of
get a context
America,
and a
but
bunch
then
of
additionally over there at 5D and 6, well, 5D will trigger another growth in addition to like the singular growth that'll join in with 4D. But then also a little bit lower, we start seeing a way for it to start merging down. Again, so Hydra is just generally well poised for a few opportunities to grow.
You ever watch the sport like you don't know, but you like kind of
Yeah, and currently the interesting thing about Hydra at the moment is Hydra is, I believe, one of the lowest currently held shares on the table, with only 4 shares currently in circulation, 2 from Alex and 2 from Chris.
That's pretty amazing, yeah. And being the fact that it could easily get taken over or absorb another corporation, it's in the center of the board. It has a lot of room to grow there. You know, it's funny. One of the strategies that I read about also is that good players early, and when we're getting a little late early, we're like getting toward the middle state, only play on the side of the board, and that's what they did. Everybody played side of the board. Of course, I wasn't that good today. I did well, but I was playing. This is a good tile. I'll play in the middle. This is a good tile. I'll play it in the middle. So nobody told me I was doing it wrong because they were all sharks.
And again, my strategy is very limited in how good it is, but I would say that one of the things that you do transition into as you play Acquire is the difference between just immediately playing all adjacencies. Like, that's a very common thing. In an early game, you teach a player Acquire, they'll jump in and they'll always play a tile to an adjacent zone. Like, oh, I can start a hotel. Ooh, I can grow a hotel. It becomes a very simple, just place what you have game. But as you start to play the game more, you start to really hold on to certain tiles, understanding that those are going to be lynch points for the development of the board.
I do too. Got cash. We need to make some.
So a little bit more about the way the game is structured. I think I mentioned before that there are a total of 25 stock certificates for each corporation. No matter how valuable they are, that's the total. So if you want to have a majority, obviously you need 13. If you want the minority, the second place, 9 guarantees it, but 8 will be a minority split. You really want to try to be there at least. when you're going for mergers.
Yeah, like you said, in general, both for the endgame scoring as well as the in-game splits, the in-game payouts, while you get options, that being third, fourth, fifth, etc., you really kind of want to focus your energy on being that first or second, because that's where you see a much higher payout on the investments you're making.
It does. I hope so.
Yeah, and currently, I believe America at the moment actually has the highest amount of stocks currently in play, with 18 of the 25 stocks
I noticed
currently in
that.
play.
Again, Shiro doing a great job of keeping track of that for us. Thank you again, Shiro.
Yes, that's a good example of a stock where we're actually seeing Chris and Dan holding the majority minority shareholders respectively, with Phil and Alex kind of just holding on to shares but not doing a lot with them at the moment.
Why didn't you play that today?
I was going to, but I locked in this one before I learned Brass Birmingham last month. I thought, wow, this is
I do really like. I did like Brass Birmingham the one time.
Who makes Brass Birmingham? We're giving them plugs on the Acquire Life. Have you ever played container? You take one, you take too many ones.
It's interesting that every corporation is actually in play.
Yeah.
Every game that I
And real
played,
life, too.
at no point, I think, that was every corporation or hotel chain, as we call it, was in play at the same time. We got closed, we might have gotten
Alright,
to
it's
6
just
of the 7,
conversation.
but then all of a sudden something would merge, boom, another one was out. What is your experience in your place?
So I was gonna say, I think a big part of that, we can't really see the tiles in all the players' hands. I think a big part of that comes down to better strategy, intro strategy to acquire, which is again more where I'm at versus more developed strategy. But if you think about all the various placements in which tiles could be further joined together right now, and between the 24 tiles we have on the board, there's a decent chance that some of those are actually in players' hands. But when you have a more, again, what you kind of place to join as you go when you have an earlier strategy, so you're more likely to see those mergers happen and then starting to see new things develop, which means hotels will be in and out of play as things are happening. Versus right now, there's a lot more cautious play as players hold on to those key tiles, which again, we don't know what they have, but it could well be that we have some of those tiles already in play and players are just holding on to them.
So in this game, there is some public information, but most information in the way it's being played here and in most games is private. So the amount of money you're currently holding is private. The number of shares that you have in any given corp and in total is private. The tiles that you have, right? Everybody has at any point during the game, they have 6 tiles, which represent one of the it's how many are there? 9 by 12 grid.
Yep.
So what is that? How many
9 by 12 sounds like 108.
108, 108. I think you're right.
I'm just doing my times table.
That's
Still
good.
got that.
You're amazing. You have 6 of the 108 possible placements on the board, and all of that so far that I mentioned is completely private information. As you can see, Chris in seat 3 right there, he just has his stuff face down in front of him. Other people have it on the rack.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason. You can do it any way you want, and everybody seems to be putting their money underneath a little
It's hard to hide nothing.
piece of paper there that's in front of their tiles or right next to their tiles.
And that goes back to some of those 108 tiles, goes back to some of the kind of odds I'm going by right now. If you look at the connection points between various hotels, we have 4 connection points. We have one between Saxon and America over there at 2D. I think it's 2D, I believe. Then we have another one between America and Fusion. And then we have 2 different connection points between Zeta and, sorry, but not American Fusion, I apologize, Quantum and Fusion. Quantum is one, again, those blues and turquoise throw me off. And then we have 2 between Zeta and America. So we have a total of 4 possible connection points to make a merger. With 24 tiles in play and 108 total tiles on the board, with many of those already in play, just statistically speaking, the chances of not a single one of those connection points being in play is just highly unlikely.
It's right. Right. There's so many possibilities that somebody's holding it, but people hold them until they have the right time to do that, to place that in, to make that merger. They're going to want to get more shares, right, in the smaller corporation to hopefully get the majority bonus, or to become in second and get the minority bonus. Both of those are absolutely good to have. Obviously, majority being better.
And the cost of everything you're buying is lower as the number of tiles in a chain is lower. So that's another thing players are constantly taking into account as far as knowing that they have the linchpin, knowing they have the information allows them to make decisions based on that in a way other players can't. Right now we're seeing Dan and Chris continuing to go back and forth, continuing to vie for that majority and minority in America over there. We currently have Chris with 9 shares and Dan with 8. This is one of those things where it's impossible for us to know over here exactly what information the players have, and this is one of those things again where I'm making a judgment call based on my strategy level, not necessarily theirs. But right now, Dan had the opportunity to buy 3 shares in America, and he chose to buy 2 in America and 1 in Fusion, which is an interesting choice if you factor in that Dan has 8 shares and Chris has 9. And so that difference of a single share at this point is that difference between the currently being the majority versus being the minority. And so I don't know what the players are tracking right now. I don't know how much they're currently following.
Well, one of the rules in all of the games here, right, at the World Series of Board Gaming, is that you cannot bring paper and pen. So everything they're tracking, they've got to try to track in their heads. They are certainly welcome to ask the other players. Well, hey, how many shares do you think how many shares do you have? How many shares do you think he has? I think he's got the majority. Oh, they can table talk all they want, but the actual writing it down is not permitted.
Yeah, this was one of those things where I'd love to be able to like talk to Dan and ask him, do you know the current count?
Did you know it, right?
I'd almost be more intrigued to hear that he does know the current count and he's still deciding not to buy a third. That would be fascinating.
I wonder why would he have done that? I have a feeling maybe he just didn't count that one.
That's my assumption.
So was that a mistake?
Nothing.
Or did he have some preconceived notion that was the right play at this point, for maybe later he's going to buy 3 to get that majority or something like that?
But right now the problem with buying 3 is that right now with only 22 shares left in America, like at any point, those
22 shares out,
22 shares,
3 left.
Correct, 3 left in stock.
You and I are.
But again, this goes back to the fact that I'm always curious. I know we're seeing actually.
Oh,
some movement.
yikes!
Oh, we're seeing
Yikes.
movement. So we saw 2 pieces of movement recently. First of all, we saw turquoise over there. Quantum just grew a little bit over there to the left. But now we're seeing Zeta and America actually be combined at the moment. So America and all these shares within it are, not around much longer.
Here comes America.
Oh,
It is the one being merged into
That's what you do in this game. You know how many other people have.
Hydra, right? America's being.
It looks like
merged.
Chris has 7 shares
So that would be 4,000.
of America.
4,000. No, 3,000. I apologize. 3,000.
Do you want to count out the second place share for me?
Yeah, so it's possible. Just looking at the table at the moment, it does look like Chris had 7 shares, and Dan actually said "I know" to that, which is interesting. You heard him say that.
Yes, I did hear him. Like, wow, I
So
know.
it's possible, and this is not entirely sure. We mentioned the shares taking care of the board over there, but also shares being fed the information from the table. So it's possible that one of these things was miscounted as things developed. But that would also add a lot more of some of that degree of I kind of assumed at this level players are tracking things, which it sounded like Dan has been tracking.
That's pretty amazing.
And this is the same Dan who's supposedly played this game 3 or 4 times. He seems pretty confident about his plays in multiple ways.
Not yet. I have not decided yet.
So we just give out winner bonuses or majority bonuses.
So he merged. He did the merge, so he gets to decide what he does with his 8.
There's guarantees off. You would be selling it at 2. That doesn't
Yep.
matter.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. She.
Oh,
Oh,
And Dan's holding on to all of his shares. So
Dan held all of his shares in America?
Yeah, it looks like it. The Dan currently has 8 shares in America, 1 shy of guaranteeing that minority and whatever else develops as America grows into something else. But it does sound like Dan is holding on to them as like a prep for something else is going to grow, something else is going to... Because that also really puts the ball in Chris's court over there. Because if Chris has 7 shares, he has to decide now, is it worth holding on to 7 full shares for only the minority of the next thing?
Right.
It kind of puts the pressure on Chris.
So there's an order of play, by the way, right? So the person who creates the merger gets the first action, I believe, to decide what they're going to do with their shares, right? And he created the merger,
I believe so. I wasn't following that part, but I believe so.
and he decided to keep them. So
Yes.
maybe he knows that something's going to happen. He's not taking shares in the acquiring corp, and he's not taking money. He's holding on to his shares, even though that corporation doesn't exist anymore on the board. As you can see, toward the left part of the screen, he's touching it right now. Those are all of the shares of this non-existent corporation that he owns some of.
And it's really fascinating to see. And again, this goes back to my lower level strategy here, where right now Hydra only has 4 shares in play. And currently Hydra is poised to be the second largest block in play and potentially well poised for additional tiles to be acquired as the game progresses. But yet there's no real trade-in for Hydra. Hydra seems to be the least sought after hotel in play, which is just unusual for the way I would normally play this game. Again, for the record, I'm not saying I win this game.
Right. Yeah, and it's very fair to say that neither of us are experts at this game. In fact, any of the people that are going to be doing commentary here, we're not experts at these games. We are hardcore gamers that love games, and we're here to entertain people and to give a little bit of our experience and knowledge about gaming in general, and to try to bring it all together.
I'm expert adjacent. Not at this game, but like it's Seven Wonders. Like
I'm adjacent to a lot of things in my life there, Alex.
Well, so I didn't mention this part, but like I mentioned Seven Wonders, I saw the ring winner being given away this morning. But what I didn't mention is last night I played in Seven Wonders and I lost my first game, but I also lost to the person who actually won the full-on tournament. So I'm basically adjacent to
You're
an expert.
adjacent to the ring event winner who might win $25,000, but it
what
won't
I'm
be
talking
you though.
about. Yeah.
But you know him at least.
Now we did see Chris do an exchange. Chris traded in 2 shares for a single one of Hydra, it looks like.
So Phil is now deciding what he's going to do. Is that right? Because he still has the American in front of him. So he is deciding. Is he thinking about it? He still hasn't. He still has the American in front of him.
Well, if you look over there at 7B, you can see the tile is still flipped. So
Right.
it looks like they're still resolving the full merger. And this, I believe, is the second merger of the game, if I'm tracking this correctly. We saw a merger between, earlier we saw a merger between Zeta and Saxon, and then Saxon became Reborn.
I mean, look what he's doing. He's actually not. He is agonizing over the decision. I love that. I mean, there was an agony going on right there where he decided, and boom, then he sold him.
Yep.
He actually sold him because you saw the money come to him. So maybe he's short on money. You can see, wow, he is long in Phoenix right now in purple. Did you see that when he was fanning his cards?
Yeah.
It's kind of cool that we here and you in the audience, if you're watching, you can see a little bit of what they've got in the hands of the people on this side. That would be Phil on the left in C4 and Chris on the right in C3.
Oh, what?
So Chris, we're saying, might have some extra cards in America. We don't know that. We're getting a Sherry here is keeping track of what she believes is in play, and people are texting her from the floor. So, and by the way, none of what we're saying isn't obvious is being heard by the players, of course. We can hear some of their table talk if they're talking loud enough. I'm hearing it in my head. Alex is hearing it. We're not getting it all, but Sherry is here is keeping track of whatever she can keep track of and helping us out.
So effectively, that chain of 2, the misplay, the miscall in America's color, that might have been 2 cards of a different color called incorrectly. So we'll have to see. And it looked like he had a bunch of turquoise there. You're tracking that?
Chris has got
Yeah,
Chris has got a boatload of quantum.
Sure, I'm guessing that those 2 shares are going to be 2 shares of quantum, just based on seeing his hand fanned out in a bunch of quantum over there.
So it looks like they resolved the merger. It took a while to do that. Normally it doesn't take quite as long, but those decisions are key, right? I mean, those decisions to hold, which may be the rarest of them, maybe not, or sell for money, which is painful. You only do that when you need money, or go for a 2-to-1 for the acquiring corporation. Probably the most common of the 3 decisions, but all of them are important, and they're huge in what's going to happen in the game to follow.
Yeah, especially now, because we're heavily entering that mid game.
We are. Really, I would say we are we are solidly in the mid game right now.
It looks prettier, but in terms of play,
Now the mid game adds an entire new kind of thought process into it. I mean, we've talked about that a little bit. It's like almost a poker-ness comes into this. Tell me a little bit about how you approach that and how you know about what goes on there and kind of the familiar conversation that starts occurring between the players.
So again, in my case, I'm playing this at a much lower level of strategy and intensity than what we're potentially seeing here. And I'm curious to see what we'll see. But in general, Acquire actually has an aspect of being heavily a bluffing game. It almost has a poker feel to it because of the nature of the fact that you're trying to track what's going on in the experience. And that could even lead, depending on how cutthroat the players are. And again, I don't fully know. Sure, we have a bunch of serious players at the table.
Right.
I don't know to what level they're going to engage in this kind of table talk. But the idea of even just kind of trying to throw misinformation out there, trying to talk to the players, ask questions to leave the table. Oh, I don't recall who picked up 3 shares of that color earlier, and that could result in just trying to feed information. But another player might answer literally giving misinformation.
Right.
Oh, that wasn't me. That was Dan over there did that, and that could result in multiple people trying to navigate their through the flow of information and misinformation. Which again, just it's fascinating because when I play Acquire, I don't engage in that level of trying to just bluff the other players. But again,
Right, we're playing it at a much more casual level. Like today, it was all joking and fun and games. 2 of the players that I played with today were going to be in the tournament.
Nice.
But we were playing fun and games, and they were just getting some extra practice. But here, it should become a little bit of a head game, a little bit of a poker game. So I'm going to ask Chris right now if it's okay, if it's possible to raise the volume of the table into our headset. I'm not sure if that is, because Alex and I can hear ourselves now, so that we can hear a little bit more, and maybe the audience, of course, will also hear a little bit more of the table talk and the action at the table. Thank you, Chris, our crack engineer in the studio. And Chris, by the way, is responsible for all the AV that's being done for this event, and he's done an amazing job. I'm not just saying that because he's holding a knife to me. Bless you.
Oh no, I didn't sneeze. I don't talk much. That was player 2.
That was player 2 who just sneezed, absolutely. And player 2's name is?
That would be Alex. I'd feel more clever about that if that was intentional.
That's true.
Yeah, so America just formed and is back on the board, and America's in an interesting position because again, it could be there's only 1 tile currently that can lead to an acquisition, but there's several others that are actually 2. I apologize. 2 tiles that currently can lead to an acquisition of America, and we currently have Dan and Chris tied with 8 shares apiece, as well as Alex having 7 shares, which is a whole lot of America on the board.
America's still the most. Now, in America did America merge recently? Or?
It just did. It's back on the board.
And it came back on the board.
Yep.
And it's the most held stock out there. 23 of the 25 shares in total are held. And it just came back. Think about that for a moment. So everybody was banking on the small corp to come back in a big way, so to speak.
It's interesting to see Alex's plays because you can see Phil kind of divested entirely, but Alex is really trying to double down and get into that, which is going to be intriguing.
Yeah, those are all. That's 3.
But it does look like currently if Dan has, Alex's play is interesting, but I don't know if it worked out well for him because Dan's currently sitting there holding 10 shares, and all 25 shares of America are currently in play, held by Dan, Chris, and Alex.
All the shares are in play, and you can tell that immediately just by looking at all of the colors that are out of play. There's no blue there. So America is held 100%. Everybody, I wonder if they're counting.
It sounds like Dan has been counting things a lot, basically. Again, that's the way, and honestly, that's actually an interesting note in and of itself, which just goes to the level of talk or double talk this game could have. Because when Chris dropped to 7 and said, I have 7 earlier in the game, Dan said, I know, which is almost his own acknowledgement of, I can't argue either way, is that to throw the threat of intimidation of that he has perfect information, or did he give away that he has perfect information?
Right, exactly. Was he trying to, it's bravado, right? Like, I know what you have. And that would intimidate the heck out of me, personally, if I was sitting at that table.
600 for 3 sides.
Did you complete all transactions? Alright.
Now, Steven, if you were a betting man, which hotel do you think is most likely to be acquired next? We can put this little side hustle over here.
We can have a little side bet. What do you think?
Although with all this talk about how much money you're going to owe people, I don't know if I feel confident in this.
Well, on average, the hotel that is easiest to be merged into would be Fusion. Fusion has 2 possible spaces to play to have a merger happen.
Well, so the question I asked was which
Was
one is
that-
most likely to be acquired? Which would
To be
actually,
quiet. So I mean, on statistical level, it's Fusion.
well, I
now.
think Fusion would be likely to acquire 2 hotels. America's currently positioned to be acquired by 2.
Am I Fusion's
Oh, it is illegal.
correct? And that's Fusion.
Oh,
there with
you're
only-
correct. No, Fusion only has 1 tile. Where, oh, interesting. You're correct.
There's
Correct.
2 spaces that would be like A7 or something like. Oh no, I forgot the way that they structured the board. It's
Yeah.
1
I don't know, a G.
1 G or F and 2 G or F, and either one of those would then take and make Quantum the acquirer of
But if you look at America, America also has 2 spots that can
Yes.
make it acquired.
on 2 different corporations.
Yes.
So that almost puts it in play in a more material way because both of those guys are looking closer at that corporation. So yeah, I don't know. If I was going to bet right now, the center of the board is where you play this game a lot. So therefore I go America. And of course, Dan really wants America to be acquired, like in a real material way.
I'm going to go for the risky play, and I'm going to say that I think that Saxon is likely to be acquired next.
Okay.
It's an interesting choice.
If people know that Dan's holding the most of America, of blue, they're going to try not to get it acquired. But there's no way to get rid of it. So I guess at this point it's fait accompli, right? Because if he's got the most and all of it's out there, he's just waiting to be acquired by somebody and nobody can stop that.
No, it's definitely going to happen at some point, but that's also part of why I think America is less likely to be acquired. And then versus when you're looking at Fusion versus Saxon, those 2 spots with Fusion have been available for a while and haven't been played.
Right.
Technically, same with Saxon, but I'm wondering. I don't know how it plays out exactly. I am curious to see what happens, but I'm just going with a completely fun little side bet guess of Saxon being acquired next.
You know what? I'm going to actually say I think it's going to be America because I think the players now know that this is a done deal. So let's get those shares adjudicated and we'll move on. We'll get some payouts and we'll move on. So I'm going to bet it's America next. And that is blue. We probably should be saying the color too, because I don't know that everybody out there. We've got a cheat sheet here, so we know that the colors and what the names are.
So let's do a recap for the current colors and names for all the players. You want to start us off?
Sure. We have red is the corporation known as Saxon, which is named after Sid Saxon, the great American designer.
Then for yellow, we have Zeta, not quite named after Sid Saxon.
And then orange is Hydra, not quite the largest, but the 2nd largest corporation on the board, the second just in sheer size.
And then tied for the smallest, we have Fusion as green in the lower left corner.
Right. And then blue is America. We've been talking about that a lot right there in the center, ripe for acquisition.
And then on the bottom of the board, we have a 4-tile chain of Phoenix for purple.
And then finally we have Quantum, which is the turquoise or cyan type color there on the right-hand side.
Saxon's seeing some interesting growth patterns over there, which is going to be very intriguing.
I'm actually going to declare that we are getting close to the final stage of the game. Because there are not a lot of spaces actually left, and certainly not a lot that will not trigger mergers, and things will really start to speed up as that happens. The only stuff that's not really going to trigger things or going to be alone and just add is kind of that upper right-hand corner. There's a lot of kind of space there they'll just add random stuff together. No new corporations going in, so like if the top right-hand corner,
12A were put down, for
whatever that
example.
is, 12A and B or something like that.
Yep.
Those aren't going to do anything except because they can't trigger corporation because all 6 are out there. But if these things happen around these other spaces, things are going to start going quickly. We're going to get corporations that become safe. That they have 11 tiles on them. That's gonna we're in the end phase of the game. Not the end of the game yet, of course, but we're in that like final, like people really have to wonder what's happening next. How am I going to get the big payout? Do I have the majority in something to get a payout? Do I have the second, the minority? This is getting tense right now.
And again, this really goes to the interesting nature of the way I've played Acquire versus the way we're seeing a higher level of play, because I mean, we've only seen 2 merges the whole game, if not mistaken, which is just, at this point in the game, that's just unusual.
That's
for,
phenomenal.
Yeah,
That's crazy. I mean, in my game, there must have been 10 mergers. They just kept happening because we were not particularly this level.
It's actually fascinating. One of the things I enjoy about games in general, all games, anything from chess all the way up to who knows where, it's at the end of the day, I find it fun, the fact that when you're engaging with games, and any kind of game, pick again, whether it's chess or whether it's, I don't know, Dune Imperium, players can enjoy the game so much at so many different levels. You can have a bunch of novices sitting together, just playing a game together, having a blast. You can have a bunch of high-level players just taking each other out. Like, I recently had a film playthrough of Dune Imperium on my channel that I really enjoyed and had a great time, and I won the game, but then I also got comments from people in the comments who were, like, talking about all the strategy mistakes I made. And both things are true. There's a ton of room for improvement, but you could still be the person who won if you're playing it with people at your skill level.
Absolutely.
Are we seeing that as safe? Is that safe? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay, so the first corporation that is safe is yellow, Zeta, in the lower right-hand corner. Now, safe means it cannot be acquired by another corporation. It can still acquire, it can still gobble up the small ones, but it cannot be acquired. And that's a very important point. And anything added to it will simply add value to the shares outstanding. You just notice that Phil added another tile, so now it's 12, just making it more valuable. And we know that Phil has... How much does Phil have of Zeta? Phil has 4 shares, so he just made
shares,
Zeta that much more valuable. He made the shares in his hand that much more valuable.
Also, it's interesting because one of the things that Acquire has, it actually has a tiered system of acquisition. At the lower levels, each additional tile starts adding value, but once you start moving up the chains, there start being these gaps where you might need a bunch of tiles that have an impact on the state. Ooh, we are seeing an acquisition.
An acquisition.
And it was actually the hotel you called, but not for the reasons you called it.
Where is it now? I actually don't see it on the
Bottom
board.
left corner. We're currently seeing what's it called? What color?
No,
Fusion.
I called I called America.
You called America.
So
Okay.
I was wrong, and I think you were wrong. You were going for Saxon. I
was going for Saxon. I was going for risky play.
So now this is Fusion Green being acquired by Phoenix Purple.
Green is going away.
Well, let's see what everybody does. So
And that looks like another opportunity, another payout for Dan over there. Another majority payout.
No.
Dan really seems to be.
Oh, it's true.
We'll see how this plays out.
right. So the first thing you do, you determine who is the majority shareholder, who's the minority or the second place shareholder. You pay out the bonuses of that, and then each player who owns that corporation or hotel that's going to be acquired gets to do something with their shares. 2 for 1, they get to trade to the new corporation, the bigger corporation, or they just hold them.
Yep.
Hopefully it comes back, and I don't think at this stage holding is a good idea.
I'm guessing Dan's going to hold based on the way he's been
You
playing
think he's
this
going to
game,
hold
I think
a
Dan's gonna hold
corporation
him.
that may never come back into play?
Yeah, he said
Oh,
At
it's
this
come back
point,
into play. Top left corner, it's come back into play.
Yes.
and the third thing is you just take the money per share at the current price.
New size of deck.
Well, but he has.
Yeah, he said he's keeping it. It isn't official. I'm staying out of it.
So we
Yeah, I don't know.
You should keep.
Some table talk going on right now.
No.
So you really think that they're going to bring back that corporation after it leaves? You think that
Absolutely.
Fusion's going to come back?
Top right
I don't think
corner
there's
of the
enough. Sure, but is it going to have enough time to come in with? It's going to be like a cascading effect right now. I think we're going to see corporations start to merge quickly.
And it does look like you might be right. Dan's definitely making some purple exchanges over there.
I'm trading it 10.
So he said 10.
Trading 10 green for 5 purple and keeping 1.
Did you see that? Exactly. He took 5 of the purple Phoenix shares for 10 of his
You don't sell any?
green fusion shares. And I think he had one extra that he sells.
Yes.
Is that right? And he just sold the last one. So you never lose it. Even though you get the 2-to-1 exchange, you don't lose anything. You then just immediately get the money for that one. This game is tight. I mean, I think it's anybody's game right now. I don't think there's any runaways going on here. Do you have somebody who right now you think is the favorite to win this?
It's hard to say for sure. I mean, right now we see, again, if we're looking at Zeta as being the largest currently, but currently Phil has the largest holding in Zeta. But at the moment, and because of the left active and fewer mergers, it's going to be a little cash-strapped game overall. But I mean, just the way Dan's been playing, again, I know he says he's only played the game 3 or 4 times, but Dan has given me a sense of confidence in what he's doing and how he's doing it. Whether that confidence is misplaced or not, I just don't know. But I'm getting the confidence, and that's certainly driving me a little bit in his direction.
So I'm going to go back to the fact that, I'm amazed. I think that if Dan has a tile that could merge America, he would play that thing in a heartbeat to get that merged and to get all his value out of that. But he's not. I bet he just doesn't have it, right? Because he's got this. He knows he has the majority. We've seen his card counting, right? We've seen his corp counting. And he's not merging that, so that's my thing. I think that Dan could be in the lead if he ever got a chance to sell America.
Yeah, and overall, Chris has sounded a little frustrated with some of the plays that he's making in general. It's just
His own plays, though. He's not frustrated with anybody else. Seems like we're hearing a little bit of like, I can't believe, kind of angry at himself. Of course.
Yeah, and looking at his holdings, he doesn't have any clear and obvious wins at the moment. I'm curious to see how it plays out.
It's a big break, man.
And we're seeing some movement. We're seeing a movement.
What's happening?
We're seeing purple currently. Currently Phoenix. Phoenix is acquiring Quantum. Turquoise.
Okay. Okay, as you see, they've turned played the tile, they turned it upside down. Now we're going to see the merger with Phoenix taking over.
Hey, we're back in, man. Let's do this.
And again, that's an interesting play.
Take that, you other side of the table.
5 shares of purple. Is that going to go?
More money than we've
I'm
got.
picking Dan right now. I'm going out on a limb. I'm taking Dan as in the lead right now.
I mean, purple, Quantum of the Phoenix over there is currently the largest corporation in play at the moment, the largest chain in play. And currently, Dan has 12 shares of it. And given the other shares at the table, while it's not technically a lock for the majority shareholder, at the moment it seems like a likely lock for the majority shareholder.
I'd like to point out that Phoenix is now the second safe corporation on the board.
Yeah.
Safe corporations, again, cannot be acquired, but certainly they can continue to acquire, they will.
Which is a good point, because I should take back my previous statement where 12 shares is actually a lock at the moment because the other shares can't be sold. So because you can't actually sell the 5 and 7 that Chris and Phil have, Dan is definitely the majority shareholder and the largest corporation on the board.
Theoretically, someone could acquire the 13th share, unless it's
The
out
13th
there.
share could be acquired, but it wouldn't matter at this point because it wouldn't change the balance of
Correct. Right, because it'll just give you more shares of a very valuable corporation if you acquire it.
I want to point out that off camera, Shira just gave us a thumbs up and said we're doing great. And as the person who I've been hearing only good things about her
Amazing
commentary yesterday from yourself,
Amazing
from
things.
everyone.
And what she's doing behind the scenes actually on the board for us. She's keeping track of all of the numbers here that we would never be able to do and make these comments. So thank you again, Shira.
That's just I just take her praise with a high grain of salt. High grain of salt. No, that's not what I'm saying. I take her praise with a high degree
of esteem. We
esteem,
thank her.
exactly.
We thank her
That's
very
what
much
I'm
for
looking
that.
Now we're still seeing the players resolving this acquisition.
Yeah, and basically it's the part of the game that takes the longest, each acquisition, right? Because you determine who's acquiring who, and then in turn, what are you doing with your shares? And it's a mind-bogglingly hard decision sometimes. It gets a little easier now because you're like, okay, well, I probably don't want to hold shares of small corporations right now. Right now we have Fusion green out of the game, off the board. We're just saying, not necessarily out of the game, and we have turquoise Quantum off the board. Having said that, there are still shares out there, unless they're going to be sold right now,
Yeah, I mean,
of Quantum,
traded 2 for purple.
and
Sell 2.
Fusion's got a lot of shares still out there.
Yeah, there's a lot in play. And like we're saying, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at the game state so far, we saw the first like half of this whatever, we saw 2 acquisitions, and then in a 1-2 punch, we saw directly 2 more.
Boom, right there.
And that trend might continue, especially like I'm curious to see like if Dan plays 2E to D, that'd be very intriguing to me, because that'd be a further purple acquisition of red, a cascading chain of acquisitions from purple dominating the board.
Traded into this, got money. Since you watching the stream, I thought not actually. Thought we have food.
So you get 1 turquoise and so forth.
Traded 2 for 1 purple. Sold.
And kept one.
Yep.
You get 1.
Sold 2 turquoise. Traded 2 turquoise for a purple. Kept 1 turquoise.
So you end up with a purple. And
They're
one.
still figuring out the merger.
$1,400. That's the best part.
Chris seemed a little happier there.
So now you're gonna be on. No. You shooting it.
Spring break. So you get to buy now. Yeah, I'm looking at it. Yep. Just making sure you're aware. Definitely aware. Yep. Painfully aware. Oh God.
Looks like the acquisition's finally completed. We're going to be moving on to the next
See my
fight.
next tile. But that's illegal, isn't it? Yeah, that would be illegal. Dude, I would have wished I'd played that 1D. Would have made some more money on that. That's an interesting collision. Got like 500 shares. You know what would be
Please, somebody, please merge America. I really want to see America merge.
Just to see numerically.
That tiny little center corporation. I think it's. I think that's the winner.
It's more than 11.
That
It's
gets
less
done.
than 20. The good thing is it doesn't really matter too much in between there on a 10-by-10 basis. I mean, sometimes it might. With purple out. 15.
Count yourself. 2,100 against my paper.
Wow.
900 change.
I could count it, but he just did.
I'm not telling you next time. 3 Hydra. How much you get back? Someone confirm that.
You just bought Hydra?
Hydra, yeah. 3 shares of Hydra.
Hydra. That's interesting though. Why would you go for the biggest corporation? A lot of times right now you're buying the small corporations.
Well, Hydra's in the middle of it there, the middle
Oh,
orange.
I'm looking at yellow again. There we go. There we go. So no, Hydra's a good buy. It's possibly could be required.
Especially with
expand.
only, I mean, again, if you're tracking other players, we currently have Chris and Alex with 3 shares apiece, so that puts Phil
Hopefully become
tied.
unmergeable.
The flip side is it also could incentivize other players to start doubling down and locking in. Alex and Chris could go ahead and try to lock in some further purchases. I believe we just saw Dan playing 3D, if I'm not mistaken, which led me to believe he is trying to continue his acquisition while maintaining a dominant share in purple. At the moment, based on what he has on the board, I wouldn't be surprised if he buys in red. If Dan bought a little bit of Saxon, is he buying Saxon at all?
Dan has some Saxon.
Well, that's what I'm curious. I'm curious because Dan currently has tied for the minority shareholder, but I'm curious if he's trying to lock in a few more shares with the intent of it being acquired.
Okay, 60.
So I think one of the things we're seeing over there is what is public knowledge at the table is the number of remaining shares.
Absolutely.
So you're seeing Chris riffle through that, counting the remaining shares to get a more viability of what's out there. So it does seem like Chris either is not perfectly tracking the information, or alternatively wants the opponents to believe he's not perfectly.
It's the mind game that goes on in this game.
It looks like instead we're seeing Dan jump in on some Zeta over there. Which is interesting because I mean 3 shares of Zeta, if he has the economy for it, does put him tied. Wow, that puts him tied for majority shareholder on Zeta at the moment. But it comes down to the economy of the game at this point.
Dan is holding more shares in total than any other player, easily. His hand of shares is huge. By a quick count, he's got approximately 30-something shares. I mean, that's 32?
20,
Did I say that right? No,
20,
10?
30, I think 30.
30 even. It's just a lot of shares to be having his hand, which is a good position to be in. There's nothing wrong with that. But he's looking for a whole bunch of different things to possibly happen.
But it's also interesting because he's got so much of the majority payout bonuses that gives him a little bit more cash, which gives him the opportunity to potentially dive into Zeta where other players don't have the economy to buy into a share at this point in the game.
Nope. Do we have a merger? No.
Not yet.
Just another expansion of
I just
Phoenix.
that is the time I said 3D. I meant to play it. I played it.
Never again.
So I
I couldn't say for you too. That was the funniest part.
I said 3D.
10% Let's make it 9%. I want to wear that ring once a month.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, with Phil buying 3 shares of Hydra, of Orange, we're seeing Alex increase his lead.
I'm amazed Dan is not cursing up a storm that nobody has the tile that will merge America blue. He needs that. He's a winner. I think if that happens, he wins. He's going to get all kinds of bonuses for that. And he's got 12 shares. He's got the majority of Phoenixes. So if he could merge America into Phoenix, it's going to be huge. That would be blue into purple if you guys are not watching the color and name of the corporations.
This is 700 for yellow.
Oh yes, it's 11, but it's a cheaper one.
Oh, interesting.
It doesn't matter.
Oh, and yellow is just the best. Fun game. That's been a good one.
I do really like that.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing
But
some slower
probably
play
other
as
people
the
that
game
ever get to play it
gets to this
regularly.
point.
But
Yeah, people are calculating exactly what that next move has to be. But I'm going to put it at, I can't imagine more than 1 or so turns around the table at this point. That's going to be the maximum time.
So
For-
Chris again is doubling down in his. Again, Chris and Alex are currently tied for majority in Hydra. Phil can again escalate that in his turn if he wants, but we're just seeing multiple vie for that control. Majority and minority are all
You
in
have
flux here.
6H or 7I. Any other
Oh, it's a good point. Chris just called out. One of the rules we actually did not talk about is the ability to throw out a dead tile.
So what is a dead tile?
A dead tile is a tile that cannot be placed for legal reasons. Because what happens if you have a 11 or larger hotel next to another 11 or larger hotel?
Exactly.
Those tiles can't be placed because both tiles are safe, and the game does not penalize you for having them. You have the opportunity to throw them out at any time in order to restock your hand.
Right. So as he pointed out, both the safe purple, that is Phoenix, and the safe yellow, right, that is Zeta, if I got that color right again.
You got it right.
There we go. Are both safe. Therefore, anything that will try to merge them are not legal tiles. They put them out of the game, and they redraw their hand of 6.
Yeah, Zeta's currently growing. Sorry, Hydra's currently growing to 9 tiles, putting it 2 tiles away from being safe. If someone places that 9C over there, that 9C would immediately make it a safe purchase. Or that, for that matter, we have a few tiles, as well as a 6C. 6C would also make it safe. For that matter, acquiring America would also make it safe. There's a few opportunities for Hydra to immediately become a safe tile, and we're still seeing 3 players vying for a 3-way control at Alex, Chris, and Phil, fighting over that majority-minority, which allows Dan to continue to spend his resources in other areas that help cement that majority, as we're seeing Dan do right now, which is a purchase of 3 more Zeta, locking in currently the majority shareholder of Zeta. Again, I think he just has the economy in a way that Phil doesn't. He's paying through the nose for it, but he's locking in that majority shareholder on an endgame hotel.
To remind everybody, Dan is the person in seat 1 who is claimed to only have played the game 3 or 4 times in his life, but he's playing it at a really masterful level from what we can tell. But the one thing he wants more in life right now is to have America merged. We'll say it again.
I mean, a placement of 5D would be an intriguing placement now. 5D would be an acquisition of Phoenix acquiring Hydra, which would be fascinating. But I also think that given, I mean, honestly, if Dan plays 5D, that would destroy the hopes and dreams of Alex, Chris, and Phil, and probably cement a strong win.
One more makes one just like right.
And again, at this point in the game, you're seeing players hold tiles as much as find tiles. Like, they're really trying to hold to control the flow of what they're going for.
Players are really ensuring that they've got the correct card counts, stock counts, I guess we should say. There's Chris. He's counting like everything that's outstanding that he can have knowledge on before he makes a play.
Fun and unrelated fact about Chris over there. Chris is currently wearing a Board Game Geek shirt, which I debated wearing to this event. Like, not the event. I mean, I have it upstairs in my hotel room. I mean, I debated wearing it tonight right here.
You would have been a Chris twin,
but then I would have been
Alex
fine.
twin, I think.
I would have been biased towards Chris, and that's not fair.
That's not fair.
Instead, we have Alex at the table as player 2.
He's counting again.
Also, I've noticed Phil has seemed to be, and perhaps he said things I don't know, but Phil has seemed to be fairly quiet and fairly serious looking the entire game, to a larger degree than the other players. I'm very curious to see how Phil's playing out over there. I mean, currently Phil is holding a majority share in Quantum. He's currently holding a minority share in Phoenix. He's vying for that 3-way on Hydra, and he's holding a minority on Zeta, and then tied for a minority second place on Saxon, which I don't think is enough to pull the game his way, but he's certainly not doing poorly either.
It doesn't matter for the price, but it could matter.
Who's in the yellow?
So Chris is still thinking his play out, right? He is still he's pondering.
I mean, it's.
I mean, literally, you can just watch people as they're tapping their contracts, their stocks. He's nervous.
3 Hydra.
10.
So we saw Alex pass an opportunity to buy 3 Hydra, but we're seeing Chris continue to try to pursue that lead. Now, Chris does have the fewer shares at the table.
Well, he just bought. Like you said, he just bought 3 Hydra, right? If he's got the numbers right, he knows he's well in the lead, 9 to 6 to 6 in Hydra. That's a good place to be. He's looking to get that into a merger.
Oh, yes. Hell yeah.
Oh.
Is it now safe?
Oh, that sucks, actually.
No. We
Oh,
just
no.
saw it. Oh, wow.
Hydra
has
is
just-
being acquired.
This
right?
is the biggest move, potentially biggest move of the game. Hydra is being acquired by Zeta.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it was just a tile short of being a safe company, but Hydra is now being acquired.
Now, what's interesting is Phil currently has 6 shares of Hydra, and if Shill goes ahead and trades those 6 in for 3 shares of Zeta, that'll put him tied for Dan as majority shareholder of Zeta.
This is the biggest move of the game. Whether or not it becomes the key move of the game, we'll see in a second. But this is going to create a. Let me take a look. That's 11.
It's not quite at 41. Not quite. Nowhere near.
It's about 26. A size 26 corporation. We're not anywhere near end of game state for that. Yeah, remember, if there's one corporation on the board, it is 41 tiles. We create an end game condition.
We also have to factor in, based on the way that corporation goes straight down the middle, that also makes that 41 size corporation harder and harder to actually achieve at the moment.
Keep doing the thing.
But it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. This really puts Phil in a much better position if Phil trades those 3 in for Zeta. That really puts him in a significantly better position for that vying for the win.
I'll trade.
At this point, I'm kind of torn between Phil and Dan. I'm still leaning towards Dan, but Phil just only went up a notch.
I just, again, flabbergasted that nobody has been able to get that America merged, but
4 yellow.
Dan doesn't have the tile, obviously. He would play it.
Yeah, and Chris went ahead and traded in 8 orange for 4 yellow, putting him as a current minority, but I think that's about to change.
So if you take a look right now, 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles, if played, 4 specific tiles will merge America into one of either Phoenix or into Zeta. So that, I mean, and that's a substantial number. 4 out of what's left right now, which is, let's call it 20. Right? That's 25%. So I guess maybe the person holding those tiles, if it's one person or it's still in the pool, they just don't want it to be merged.
If you look at the moment, I believe Phil just went ahead and purchased the last 3 shares of Zeta, locking him as the majority shareholder, if I'm following that correctly.
But I did not keep as good track.
A while back there were.
Yeah,
He's now locked in as a majority shareholder on the largest on the board. Phil has just gone up very quickly in his control state.
5E, which somehow doesn't match it.
Wow. Dude.
That's a big move for Phil. That could be what we need to see the game shift from Dan's direction over to Phil's. Yeah, and going back to earlier, we mentioned that we discussed some of the tiles, some of the hotels coming off the board and coming back on. We did see Quantum
really
the other ones more and more seem safely off.
Yeah, no, this just at this point in the game, there is no way we're going to see Fusion
Can you
Green,
imagine the still 2 in the center?
Hydra Orange coming back.
Yeah,
There's almost no place to get them placed back again.
I believe 10D gives us a legal new hotel creation, but that might be the only spot on the board. 10D might be the only spot on the board that actually makes a new hotel chain.
Quantum.
Oh, no, I'm incorrect. 12D as well. 12D as well would also. So we have 2 possible hotel creations, less likely for normal players to really try to just be control that.
6H, 7 Eyes already gone. What else?
Something people can figure out on their own.
5Z.
Interesting
Well,
table
it's
talk right
actually-
there. We have Chris kind of trying to help people figure out which tiles might be dead. And some players seem to be resistant to getting that information.
Or for individual players, but
Not the.
Are you saying they don't want the information? They don't
It
care
could
about
be
it?
that they know the information themselves and they don't want other players
You know
to have
what?
that
So
information.
because if another player knows it, then they'll
up their hand.
improve their hand.
Yeah.
Right. So sure, it might not be in some players' interest
Yeah.
to let that information go.
Yeah, I mean, if I know Dan has 7 shares, you might share it with everyone, but I'd rather be just me and you knowing.
Right. Exactly.
I'm placing 10D.
And there we go, the last hotel creation. We saw it.
It came back?
It just happened.
No way.
That was the last possible hotel creation.
Just when I said it wasn't going to happen, of course, it happened. So now we're seeing Hydra Orange coming back into play. And again, it's excellent to now own some of that and get it merged into the largest corporation, which is right next to it, which is Zeta.
How many Quantum?
So I predicted to be no more than 1, maybe a couple of turns around the table. I think at the moment, I'm going to stand by that because we only had 2 more turns since I think I said that.
You said that once before.
Let's see. I mean, I think we only have a couple of. I think we only have a couple of turns left. Like,
There's not a lot of legal placements. So
Right.
at this point, honestly, I mean, who just placed that last tile? Did Chris place that tile? Chris placed that last tile. So yeah, I mean, you're saying it doesn't come back to Chris again?
I'm not coming back to Chris in my opinion.
Let's go ahead, and for the sake of having fun over here,
And making
I'm
a
going to
bet
say
in
that
Vegas.
Alex places the last move of the
Okay.
game.
So three more turns, 3 more
Yep.
play turns.
But specifically
That's
Alex.
legit.
I'm saying Alex is the last move of the
Well,
game.
if Chris is down, that means 3 turns. That means Phil and
No.
Dan and then Alex.
To be very clear, we could see it continue. We absolutely could. You can see multiple tile placements in the top left corner that merely cement Saxon. Honestly, I probably should
Sure.
take back my place. I'll stick with it. I'll stick with it, just for the sake of
Are
consistency.
you sure?
No, I'm not.
Alex, you're going with Alex.
I'm going with Alex because
Alex.
it's
Alex.
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 You sure it's Alex?
No, it's Alex.
What's your name?
Alex.
Okay, got it. Always good to hear laughing from the staff that are hanging out there.
From Chris, in fact.
Sure
In
is.
fact, Chris. Yeah, the next to Alex, we have Chris.
Danielle is back, looking in on us.
Danielle, come
She
join
did-
us for the end game.
She did some more. You want to come join us again? She did some Vegasing. Now she's back.
Vegasing is an important part of
It's
the
a,
experience.
I think it's a verb. Are you actually gonna
Yeah, I'm gonna
do this again? It's gonna hurt your knees again?
Danielle, how's it been?
I finished that margarita.
Oh, hey.
I'm
We're
glad.
in
Hey,
Vegas.
man.
That's allowed anytime.
I thought about getting another, but I realized we're
Hopefully we're gonna go out after this.
Oh, we just saw a merger. We just missed it.
Oh,
We just,
no, we can't miss this thing for the
Hydra
watching.
just got acquired by Zeta, as expected.
the light bright is looking delightful.
Yeah, I'm gonna
What
win.
pattern can you see there?
So
Take these 2.
Hydra.
Metroid,
This 4 is not.
Alien, maybe.
So Hydra Orange, you're saying just got acquired by Zeta, which is really big right now. It goes all the way up to the top. Is that going to make it close to 41 tiles?
It's pushing it, but no, I don't think so yet.
So I don't know. I can't. Maybe our staff back there can try to figure out the number of tiles that Zeta is now become.
Do we have a big britches?
It's
Absolutely.
pretty big for its britches.
We have 2 big britches in play.
32 only? Okay, Chris is giving us a signal 32, which is not near 41, so that's not helping us. That's not getting us to endgame stage.
Speaking of this light bright pattern here, reminds me of a little joke.
Minorities majority.
I keep meeting with Dr. Roshar, and he seems like a really nice guy, but all he does is show me pictures of my parents fighting.
Yeah, they're keeping
Rorschach.
Rorschach
test? Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, just go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got
It's
it.
cute. It's
I
cute.
got
It's
it.
cute.
Oh, that is
I'll bring more dad jokes.
How would that?
Forgot we were bringing that energy to the table here.
Bring the dad joke energy all the time.
500. Thank you.
Okay, so they're gonna be taking a while to get through this merger because this is about as key as it gets.
That's something I was trying to explain to my. It was like, board games are great because everyone's there to play.
You traded all.
I traded all. You told them all. You told them all.
So all you need to know is right now there's 4 players at the
Go to a
table.
dealership,
One of
and
them's
buy a
going to
car,
win.
and just
There's
stay
4?
No, we can't finish.
Wow.
I like
One of them's going to win. That's all you
Oh
need
yeah,
to know.
Larry.
What's going on right now is that the yellow
More
corporation, the very large one in the bottom right, has acquired the turquoise one. And you notice, did they actually? Oh, they actually
wanna
finished the.
Point out, Alex went ahead and played his turn, and it's going to be Chris's turn, which means my bet. I just lost that bet.
Oh, damn.
Not that I apologize. It was the green that was acquired. Turquoise is still on the board, right?
We're seeing a 1A being held by Chris over there in the bottom corner. Now, it's not in Chris's interest to improve 1A at all, so that's a dead tile. They all have so many cards. In fact, if you look
Yeah.
at the board over there that Shira has been delightfully tracking for us, you can see at the bottom, each
How many
player
cards they
has
have?
how many shares.
Yeah. That's exactly what each player has. We have a board over here that's tracking the number of shares in each corporation for each player, which is great. And thank you again, Shira, for helping us out there. And we're tracking when things are going to be acquired by other companies.
It's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. Lots of acquisitions.
Lots of movement. Lots of number movement. That's a full-time job. You're right, I was going to be jacked by this.
We can't all be drinking margaritas, Danielle.
Hey, I went back for a second, and
Some of
instead
us-
I came here.
Some
That's
of
how
us-
devoted I
Some
am.
of us have jobs, Danielle. Some of us have jobs.
Excuse me. Thought my job was to
Even-
drink margaritas this weekend.
Even in Vegas.
When it's on the board, right?
44. I believe it's 33.
So Chris just purchased another 3 turquoise quantum, it sounds like?
Okay, we're good. Dude, red will never merge, and neither will blue. You're screwed, and you and I are screwed. He can get
Did you hear that? Red will never merge. Someone said, and neither will blue. Now,
I swear I don't have.
why?
I have all the
Why
reds.
say that?
I'm not giving you reds.
Because
I think
no
they're
one will
saying
tell
it.
you.
I think they're saying it based
I'll give
on
you your
tiles.
reds.
I just
Like,
want
if
one
Chris
of
is
the
just saying
merge.
he
That's
has
all I
the
want.
mergers.
Oh,
Then he wins on the road.
so Chris is kind of admitting that he's not going to
Or
play
bluffing.
those?
Or
Or bluffing.
I love a good bluffing game.
I don't.
I do so much.
It's a lie. I do, and you fell for it.
I didn't
That's
call you
great.
out on your false bluff.
I mean, if you didn't call me out, I had to follow through with the
Okay.
joke. Dad joke. Dad joke.
Dad
I'm here for
jokes.
it.
3 quantum. Okay, value that.
Thank you, Dad. Alex.
I am. 4 kids. 4 kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big family.
Bless you.
Thank you.
You didn't sneeze.
Oh, I know.
Purchasing anything.
I'm here for the winner.
Yeah,
I'm here for it now. I'm invested emotionally, physically invested.
You,
Because I'm not moving.
you can't move.
If you don't have blue, you can merge teal as soon as possible.
It's gonna be interesting to see this play out. Because Dan really still wants to see America merge, but perhaps not at this point, honestly. It could shift the stake. I mean, Dan has a pretty good stake where he could have a good stake. So there's not a lot of opportunities otherwise.
Well, there's 1, 2 tiles that can do it. It's all,
A lot of tiles. There's way more than that. There's
this one, this
four.
is
I guess that
dead.
one's unplayable. So I guess there's only 4 tiles. There's 2 to merge into yellow and 2 to merge into purple.
I don't care which one it goes to.
Yeah, Chris sounds fairly defeatist at this point. I think Chris knows it's not his game.
They're pointing out which tiles
Yeah.
are going to
Yeah, Josh 7.
collapse the game state
Sorry?
in a big way.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Oh, there we go. Is it a merge? No. No. He just expanded on Saxon.
Right, just merged.
Oh, no, is it a merge?
Yeah. Saxon just merged
Red
with
is
Zeta.
merging.
That might put it at 40. I'm not sure the count. With
Oh, there it is. Okay.
21.
We're standing
Oh,
We're standing up.
Purple, 1 more.
well,
I would've won
that's
100%
gotta
purple.
do it. I wasn't.
That cost
1,
me
2, 3, 4,
I guess
5.
2,000.
No.
Are you ending the game?
I
with
don't
Mitchell?
think
Well, that's- I think
Saxon
it's
is
alright.
41.
I think it's 41.
I think it's
Is
42.
it? Oh, they're saying
I think it's
they're
40.
actually
I think-
saying they think they've got 41.
He doesn't have a choice. He doesn't have a choice?
No, he does. He does.
Yeah, I believe it might be at 41.
One corporation is 41 tiles. It's a must.
How many
It
red
triggers
do you
endgame. Absolutely. There's
How many
no
red do you have?
chance of.
I have 0 red.
No, so actually split for second.
Okay, give me the numbers to hand out first, please.
Moving to the endgame scoring.
5 red, so it's 5,000 for him.
This was when he played 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he gets 5,000.
Alex has triggered the endgame.
3,500.
Alex has triggered the endgame.
So I was right. Just the wrong turn cycle.
No, that wasn't.
I called Alex. I just called him the wrong turn. I called it the last turn.
No, we didn't get 4 more turns. You called it on the right turn, I believe.
I don't think I did. I
You
could be
think there
wrong.
were 7 turns?
Yeah, I believe there were.
They were going fast then.
Listen, I'd rather be right. Let's be honest. The opportunity to be right over our guest of honor
It feels good.
feels
It
good.
feels really good.
That's a
Embrace
lie.
that
It
feeling.
feels bad. I'm lying again. A bluff again. I feels good. I'm lying.
1,203 in quantum. First, you have to say.
That's true. Yeah.
Give him a selling. So get him his money for.
So now how does endgame scoring work?
So, endgame scoring is going to result in every single one of the hotel chains paying out the largest payout of the game until now. You basically want to hold on. It can be a full spreadsheet of a chart, each one depending on the majority and the minority shareholder. So you're primarily looking for being, while every share has a value, you're looking for that major payout as being the person who has the second and the most and the second most shares.
Alright.
So if you look at that board, the shares been doing, so just using an example over there.
If anyone knows
Right now,
every game,
Saxon's
then
having
you know
a play, but using that middle, like let's say a middle blue spot. That blue spot over there, America in the middle, with 3 tiles. America's going to pay out to Dan as the majority shareholder with 10 shares, and Chris the minority shareholders with 8 shares, and Alex is going to get 7 payouts, but like not any extra bonus. And those bonuses are a big deal.
The number 1 and the number 2 get a bonus, but then everybody gets paid on their shares.
So right now we only have 4 chains left in the game at the end game. 2 of them are very small, despite the potential size appeal of the game. If you look in those 2 blues, blue and turquoise, are size 3 and 2 respectively, because we don't count the diagonals. And then really you're looking at Quantum, you're looking at Phoenix and Zeta, the yellow and purple, as being the big shares, the big chains that have the largest payouts to their primary shareholders. And for those, we have Phil being the primary shareholder of Zeta, and we have Dan being the primary shareholder of Phoenix, which really means it kind of does look, especially if you've been tracking the whole game, it kind of really looks like it's between Dan and Phil at the moment. I am slightly leaning it towards Dan having pulled the win, but it could be anyone's game. It could be anyone's game.
I think I'm ready to play Light Bright.
Light Bright is the new version coming from probably Amazon after Rings of Power or something like that. It's a TV show. Light Bright.
Light Bright, the game.
Light Bright, The Rise of the 108. Yeah.
That's fancy.
Yeah. Well, it's a 9x12 board. So, yeah.
We can do math. Math is hard.
I didn't know that was a prerequisite being on the show. Well, I'll see myself out. Thanks. I like math. Are those paper dollars?
They are paper dollars. The least attractive form of currency in the board game hobby.
What was I playing?
Food Chain Magnet.
Nope. Was it Coal Baron recently? I opened up that box and I opened
money, dude.
It was paper dollars, and I was like,
nope.
Wow.
I did play it. I played it.
That's some serious prejudice against the paper money. Fun fact: Freedom and Freeze, more Fs. Fun fact: Freedom and Freeze loves paper money. And he only puts that in his games.
I know.
He loves paper money. That's his jam. So all Freedom and Freeze games, all 2F Spieler games, have paper money in it.
25. So since it's a 3, then we gotta get 4,000.
You know, it's gonna be tense.
Is there gonna be like champagne celebration?
Well, tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning, there'll be a ring giveaway to the ring.
I will be giving away the ring for this event because I, the Podfather of Gaming, is the sponsor.
Can we get some champagne? Can I be there? And I'll just like
sell them.
Cut off the top.
I would love
saber.
Like full on F1 podium like celebration.
In our audience right now, we also have John Hagmeyer, who's the president of the World Series of Board Gaming, and he gave his thumbs up just now to champagne at 9:30 in the morning for us. So, John, thank you very much. We're bringing it with a saber, cutting it off, and he doesn't care if he has to have the carpets cleaned after that. But you know, it's big. It's big.
Just for the record, I want the saber. I've been getting swords in my life recently, and I'm enjoying them.
Like collecting them as a hobby?
No, I want the saber. The saber we used to cut the champagne on.
Where's the saber coming from?
I don't know. I don't care.
Do you
I
have to
want
go to
the
like
saber.
the hotel kitchen and be like, hey, do you have a steak knife?
Did you not bring your sword with you?
Nope. Ooh,
Purple would be 20 if I counted it. Somebody verify that for me.
They would frown upon that. Get it together, Alex.
I don't declare the swords I travel with.
21, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Well, I will be there with a bottle of sparkling grape soda and a kitchen steak knife celebrating this victory.
I'll take 9,000. Actually, I do not have any ones. I don't have one.
They are counting out the quantum bonuses right now and shares.
Well, the they is the question here.
Yeah, so I get second place, which is 4,500. 4,500 seconds. We got this one down.
It's a lot of dollars.
But it's all paper dollars, so it doesn't really count for much.
12 shares times 900.
Six times
Is the
9.
dollars a limited supply? So like
No. Money's
Straight up no.
unlimited.
400.
What do you think the final score is going to be? Like highest score?
Who's gonna win? You're saying? Actual
What's
score,
what's
I got
the-
nothing.
Yeah, no. There's like an hour game that we played this afternoon. The winner had about 43,000, 42 and change, and I had 41 and change. So that I don't know. We had a 4-player game. I'm not sure if it's going to be different.
You know what 41
This
and
also
change
for-
is called? Weak sauce.
It probably is. These guys probably have 70 something.
I do love sauce though.
Hang on, wait.
I love condiments.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Hot sauce?
9, 10, 11,
I
12.
love hot
I
sauce.
love hot sauce. I'm that person
Can't be hot enough for me.
where I say like my fridge is empty because there's no food in it, but it's
And I would
actually
have
just
gotten more, but it's
full of sauces.
Absolutely.
Sauce for everything.
So given all the conversation around margaritas and champagne, I thought you might have some kind of sauce.
That sauce too. I'm just
All the sauces.
sauce for
I'm going
life.
second.
Right, it's scoring Zeta, the biggest corp of all.
Let's currently have a dominant shareholder, Phil, over there with 10 shares.
Oh, it's going to be very close.
Yep.
Oh, Philip.
Their tracking is close, but I'm wondering if they're tracking who has a close game.
Looks like Phil put all his money on the table. Now, 'cause obviously now it doesn't matter, but he's counting it like in real time. The other guys that kind of have it a little more together, so we don't know. We could almost count Phil's money, but it's a little hard.
36-ish, 30, around 36.
30, yeah, so
No, 46.
40, 10,
46.
20, 30, 40.
46.
Yeah.
600.
46.6. So Phil's got 46.6.
7,000, so that's 7,000.
Can we get that 7,000?
Yeah, 7,000.
Actually, Chris, he's got like that's. I guess that's 10, 20 in the what looks like yellow currency.
Yeah, Chris does not look. I suspect it does not look like Chris pulled the win there. In the top corner, Alex over there, it's a little hard to tell, but it does still doesn't look like he has it. And then Dan is the one where it's just hard to know.
40, 45, 46, 46, 600.
46.6 might be the win.
42.6.
He is sitting there confidently.
46.6, 42.6. I've heard. I think.
It looks like Phil won. I mean, I'm not calling it, but based on what we're hearing from around the table, Phil so far seems to have the highest.
Is that the stance you need? This.
His arms folded, no talking. The no talking is why I don't want to do
Oh.
that.
It's been declared. Is it Phil?
I had a very amazing comeback. That was awesome. Yeah.
Wow.
Right? Can we get a confirmation, Phil?
It looks like it.
Phil
Yeah.
is the winner. Congratulations to Phil.
That's right, Phil.
He is the ring winner
Did not.
of Acquire.
No, it was just
He will
Thanks,
now
Will, for
advance.
teaching me how to play this.
He will now advance to the
Good game, guys.
semifinals
Good game.
of
Well
the
won.
World Series of Board Gaming. And from
Okay,
there,
so-
he can go to the finals for $25,000 as the grand prize
it's
and the
9:30.
title, of course, of
9:30?
the World
That's the-
Champion of Board
that's
Gaming
the-
for
Who's the
2022.
winner?
This has been amazing.
It's very
I
cool.
mean, Alex, thank you so much for co-hosting this with me, and Danielle.
Danielle's
awesome.
been delightful.
Thanks for letting
Bringing
me
the
come
margarita
in.
to us.
Hell yeah.
It was awesome.
I'm here for it.
So we're going to now go out there and congratulate the winner and console all the losers. So, on behalf of the World Series
It's a
of
good
Board
starting
Gaming,
point to start with that.
On
We're here to
behalf of the
console the
world-
losers.
may I wrap this up?
Yeah, absolutely.
On behalf of the World Series of Board Gaming 2022, I am Stephen Bonacor, the Podfather of Gaming.
Alex Radcliffe, Board Game Co.
I'm Danny Standring.
So we'll see you tomorrow on the next live stream. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching.